Welcome, everybody, to the Waiver Watch lineup draft. We're going to give you some tips and pointers for the players you can find this week, week four, to help your lineup and all of your emergency college fantasy needs. I'm Jay Mill. I'm here with my partner, Willie B. We've got our guests, Chris Moxley and Kyle from at KL Fantasy, joining us. We'll give a little more introduction to those two shortly. But as usual, we are going to jump right in to the results from last week as we all wake up and shake off the grogginess from our 2:30, 3 o'clock bedtimes last night after the Colorado State Colorado uh, game, which was an amazing one. Willie, did you stay up for the entire game?
Yes, I did, and then some.
And then some. Yeah, he's a night owl. Everybody, he's always getting his list together at 4 in the morning, I believe. But as it turns out, yours truly was the big winner this past week. I had 118 points. I believe Willie B finished with 90 points. Let's widen this out here a little bit. Let you guys see everybody's scores. Yeah, Willie B ended up with 93 and a half. Tom from Dynasty Pros, Tom ended up with 83.8, and then Jake had 78.7. So we all had pretty respectable scores. As we've mentioned in the past, we kind of look at 90 as the barrier we like to achieve to feel good about ourselves, which is really that goal of 20 points for a quarterback, 15 points for a running back and a receiver, and 10 points for your tight end if you can get so lucky this year. But I guess I knocked it out of the park with a really big game from Kyle Monangai, um, who might have been a little bit ahead of the curve on there with his 33-point game. Lincoln Victor, who shockingly was still available, even though it was at 26% last week, had another near 30-point game for me. And then A.J. Swan at quarterback finished it off against UNLV in their shootout with 26. Um, Willie B, what did you think about your team? And you had maybe 4 out of 6 positions that hit pretty well, but what did you like? What did you not like about the performance this week for you?
I thought actually all of them did except for Casper from NIU. He didn't do quite what he was doing before, as far as especially target wise, but he 2.7 that definitely hurt. Um, McAfee actually was the top tight end, if I'm not mistaken. So I
Yeah,
mean,
he was.
you
Yep.
know, 5 out of 6 of those positions, but I mean that wide receiver too, that one really hurt, and that's why we're in second place.
Yeah, and it looked early on like Tom was going to be, the big winner. He had the Caden Salter performance with I think 46 points, something like that. But he
Yeah.
just, you know, didn't really have that other big performance by anyone else on his team. He had decent performance from his running back Amari Daniels. Um, Jaquan Jackson's, proven to be, fairly legitimate down at Tulane, but he still only ended up with 12.1. And then Jake, he was kind of down on himself last night. I know, just thought he hit with JT Daniels at quarterback, but Amari and Hampton, got him close to the 15 we want, and Sam Brown from Houston also did. He just was really low, with Kiner and his tight end Daquan Wright. So, um, but that's the recap. That gets my average, I think, up to about 88. Willie B's hovering around, I think, 86 points, and our guests are right around 83. So with that, let's introduce this week's guests and see if they can pull the guest drafters average up for the whole group. To begin with, we've got Chris Moxley. Chris is all over the place, but you might know him most from his campus to Canton hosting duties. He's also at Devi Debate, does some stuff on the Better Network. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I was on last year, went back and
Yep.
looked. I finished second, so I'm looking to win this week. The 118 is that's a big number.
Right.
So I'm hoping I can get close compared to y'all this week. But I'm excited to do this. This is always fun.
Right. And what did you say you got last week, Chris? I forgot to look it up before the show. You remember your score?
I don't remember what my score was. I just remember finishing second. But
Okay.
Yeah, I had
I
you at I
What'd
had
you
you at
have?
89. I had him at 89.9 when he was
Oh,
in week
wow.
two last year.
So that's funny. Right at that average of
Okay.
what we consider acceptable, Chris. You're right at the cutoff point, but that's good. If you can get 90, we feel like you've turned in a winning lineup. To be honest.
All right. Yeah. Acceptable. That's what everybody tells me.
All right. Next, we've got
So,
and welcome to the show.
super excited for this. You can also find me at the Devi Dose with EK Baller. Sundays/Mondays and like Thursdays/Fridays. We just do it whenever we're free, basically.
Welcome again. It's time to move on. We like to keep it moving here, and the most exciting part, sorry guys, are the picks. So we will get away from ourselves. Chris, you're going to be able to kick it off this week. I know Willie doesn't like to go first, but this week it might have some advantages because there's some guys that definitely, I think, stand out from the pack. But let's see what kind of strategy you throw into this and what position you're going to go with to start things off here.
So our cutoff is 30%.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, under 30.
29%. Colorado State tight end, Dallin Holker.
There you go.
Nice.
I mean, he's the number one tight end in the country as of now. Had an awesome game last night. I fell asleep early, but I was able to watch the rest of it.
Yep.
He's the standout player, in my opinion. 8 targets per game so far. He's got 3 tight ends. The usage is just phenomenal. The positional advantage of having him versus the other tight ends that I have listed was so massive that I have to go with Holker.
Yeah, a quick note, too, on the tight ends. We were recapping the scores from the top 12 tight ends last week. 5 of the top 12 tight ends on a point-per-game basis going into last week had 0 points. 5 out of the top 12. That's how tricky tight ends are this year. And if you throw in Urasek's 0.5 points, there were 6 tight ends from the top 12 that scored less than 1 point this week. So you definitely need to be looking for new tight ends, is all I would say, because the top 12 sucked this week. With that said, you took the one I wanted there. I've got 3 others that I'm okay with. So I'm gonna. If I didn't get a chance at Holker, I wasn't gonna go tight end until a little later. I think. I think I'm gonna take the guy that's probably had the most volume of just about anybody at any position in the last 2 weeks, which is Darius Taylor, the running back from Minnesota. I know we wondered, after kind of a slow week 1, where did he come from last week when he had 33 carries, but then he followed that up again this week with 22 carries. He's averaging 17.4, but in reality, if you just look at his last 2 games when he's really been the premier back, he's averaging 25.5 points a game. Fortunately for me, he's only owned in 26% of leagues, and that might be fortunate for you guys as well. But Darius Taylor looks like he's definitely going to be the guy in Minnesota. I like the matchup versus Northwestern as well. All right. Willie, I'll take over these input duties while you grab your pick here.
Yeah, just going back to, I guess we were all on Holker. I mean, that should be the number one waiver wire pickup. I was just going to say that. If you're not trying to get him, you're probably doing something wrong. And I'm going to go Colin Lacey from South Alabama. He was my wide receiver 29 during the preseason, but he's actually wide receiver 17 for the year.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go Colin
He's out
Lacey
for the season. Yeah.
And another note there, I think I saw it happen, but I didn't know what it was. But you had texted me last night and said it looks like Voisin, his teammate at the other receiver spot, might have torn his ACL.
That is correct. Yes,
right,
and he's out for the year. He's out for the season.
That's you hate to feel like you're taking an advantage of a situation like that, but I mean, it is what it is. Voisin might be out. There was some, decision making in the preseason of which one of those receivers would be the one to go to. All right.
All right, Kyle.
I guess first I'll go with L.J. Martin, the BYU freshman running back. He's taken over that backfield now. Definitely seems to be clear of Aiden Robbins. Last week against Arkansas, he had 23 attempts for 77 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as catching 2 passes. I think BYU is a team that identifies with the run, but didn't really have a clear RB1, and L.J. Martin seems to be taking that role. Kansas will be some tough competition for him, but Arkansas was last week and he performed admirably. So LJ Martin will be my first pick.
Yep.
And then
All right.
I think for the 201, I'm gonna go quarterback. I don't like a lot of the options at quarterback, but I think TJ Finley, the Texas State
All right.
quarterback, has another opportunity to have a good game. Last week against Jacksonville State, he's put up 36 fantasy points, and he's playing against Nevada this week, which is one of the worst pass coverage teams in the country. They're allowing 76.3% completion percentage and 17.4 yards per reception. So I think Finley and this Texas State passing offense is primed to have a big game.
Yeah, and they put up 77 points yesterday for anybody that didn't catch that. Like they had a 35-point second quarter, it looked like. So that was pretty. I think yesterday was what we all expected, probably even more out of Texas State. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can maintain that level now. So, all right, Willie, we got one quarterback off the board. Will you follow the trend and grab yours next?
We're going to go Xavier Henderson from Cincinnati. They have Oklahoma this week. He's still 23% owned. Had 14 targets last week. Obviously, it's Miami of Ohio, but you know, he's just kind of been on our radar. He had that little dip against Pittsburgh, but I think he's ready to go. So we're going to go Henderson. Oklahoma is by Fantrax standard is 95th against wide receivers.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And I think what you saw in week 1 and week 3 is more what you'll get out of Henderson as well. Like there was that, weird week in between where he had 8 targets week 1 and he dipped to 2 but then he bounced back and had his 14 last week. So yeah, I think you're on track with that. That's definitely a snipe. You just took one that I wanted pretty bigly, but it's all right. We'll keep it moving. And and because I don't like the others quite as good, I think I'll go right to the top. He was the best available in terms of rankings. He's another one that had a weird week too, but had a huge week this week, which is Robert Lewis from Georgia State. He's going against Coastal, which seems to be tough according to Fantrax against receivers, but frankly, Coastal doesn't scare me. Georgia State's got a lot of weapons. They've got Granger, they've got Carroll, now they've got Lewis emerging at receiver. He's coming off of a 40-point game. Again, he had 13 in week 2, but that was after he had 23 to start the season. But I love the 6 catches for 220 yards that he had this week. I'm not expecting that against Coastal, but I think he's going to be a guy that's capable of 100 yards and 5 or 6 catches every week, and should be able to get me a touchdown. So I'll go with Robert Lewis because he was the only other receiver I really liked besides Xavier Henderson this week, but I do have a couple more ready just in case.
That one hurt.
I can tell. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. I like when that happens. That's good. It means I'm doing my job.
He's 13% rostered. 10% of that's got to be me.
Yeah.
Everywhere. So.
Oh, wow. That's funny. So you were on him early, is what you're saying.
Yeah, actually, our CFF guy, he was one of the guys that I called out and said, hey, this is like my guy.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that one was like a knife in a heart, but you can adapt. We're flexible.
Okay. Well, you went with Holker. You had to have Holker.
I had to have Holker. That was on me. I myself up.
Yeah. All right. Well, you get back-to-back picks to make up for it.
That's true. All right. I am going to go with the guy we talked about a little bit, I think, pre-show, and that's Jalen Lucas, the running back at Indiana. He is 8% owned. He gets Akron this week. Every time he steps on the field, he's the fastest player on the field. Doesn't matter who they're playing. They want to get him the ball in space. They want to get him involved in the return game. They want to get him. He has 15 catches through 3 games already. He's their best player. And so going against a defense like Akron, who I think is not very good, has struggled pretty mightily. I like locking him down as a running back. I just think he's an explosive play waiting to happen.
Yep.
And then since, I really wanted Colin Lacey and Lewis, I thought one of them might make it back. I'm gonna go with a guy who's had 2 back-to-back big games,
Mm-hmm.
and that's C.J. Daniels at Liberty.
Okay.
I like what I saw last week from Liberty. They dominated Buffalo, and I think Caden Salter actually has a. I thought C.J. Daniels was the best wide receiver on the team going into the year. I think he still proved that. I don't like this FIU defense at all. I think FIU maybe has found something on offense,
Mm-hmm.
but they're still struggling defensively, and I think the over in this game could fly through. So yeah, he's only 5% owned. I think again, a guy who's had 22 points back to back. It's a nice little piece of value sitting out there.
Right.
Yeah, he's definitely on my radar. I had him. I had him fourth actually of who I was going to take, but I like the pick
on the receiver. Yeah, I really like the Jaden Lucas pick. Again, he's a guy in the offseason that the coaches at Indiana were saying they really needed to get the ball more. He was an All-American kick returner. And that's a nice trend that you like to see when the guy's a freshman or a young guy, and they can kind of. That's a good indicator when you get a guy who's an All-American kick returner when they move into a starting position, whether it's receiver or running back. Because you got to have some shiftiness and some skills to be at that level from a return perspective. So that kind of is a little bit of insight as to how to find some of those hidden gems in the offseason. Is who's a former kick returner or punt returner that did very well at that's moving into a starting position role with their team. Now, with that said, I've got a tough choice here. Again, I still like all the quarterbacks that I had are on the board, so I'm gonna go the Jared Palmgren route and delay quarterbacks because I like all of mine top 20. But I think one guy that I've seen that's been consistent, even though he's not getting a ton of volume, but he's managing to score touchdowns and be productive with the ball, is Jordan Waters. So I'm going to take Jordan Waters, the running back from Duke. He's going against UConn, who is not very good against the run or running backs. And again, he's only had 11 carries per game, but he's making the most of it. He's had 2 touchdowns in the last 2 games. He gets at least 60 yards a game. He's had a 100-yard game in there in the mix in the middle. And he's averaging 21. So, if I can plug in a guy and get 21, I'm in an emergency situation, I'll take that. And against UConn, I think it's even better. Jordan Waters from Duke, and he is about 26% owned, it looks like.
Yeah, you sniped me. He went from I picked him last week. He went from 6% owned to 26. So that tells you, everyone is actually adding him finally. But
well, that's the Willie Beef factor, right? That's the Willie Beef factor. They're following who you're following.
Man, that was a good one there.
Okay, good. All right, I've had 2. You put it in your wrong spot. You actually had him. Oh, you put him over here. That's all right. You do your pick. I'll make that correction.
Wow.
No,
yeah, that tells you how bad I was thinking I was going to get him.
Right. It's all good. Focus on your pick.
Yeah, I'm going to go Jordan James, Oregon.
Okay.
He is 27% owned. They have Colorado this week. Colorado is going to give up a lot of points. So and they're going to score a lot. So I think Jordan James is going to be the play. Let's see.
Hey, by the way, speaking of just that game, who he's playing next week. A lot of times you see a Power 5 play a G5, and then that G5 will be all beat up the next week, and you want to stay away from them. In a weird way, this is kind of the opposite. I feel like Colorado State came out and beat up Colorado yesterday. It looked like looked like Colorado State was the Power 5 in terms of the aggressiveness and the way they just came and smashed them in the mouth. That's what I was impressed about the most last night in that game, and I think that's another good reason for James to get in there. I feel like Colorado's they're going to be a little bit sore going into this.
I agree.
The Nevada wide receiver Jamal Bell. His target output in the first 3 weeks is 10 targets, 11 targets, and then 5 targets last week against Kansas. But I think this matchup against Texas State gives a big opportunity for a shootout and for Bell to be fully involved. So a little game stack there, even if they're in different teams with him and Finley. So I'll take Sam Brown, the Houston wide receiver, rostered in 26% of leagues. He's the wide receiver 1B in this Dana Holgorsen offense. He's had yardage totals of 106, 138, and 98. just hasn't scored a touchdown yet to really put him into a huge week, and I think that could happen this week against Sam Houston State. So easy opponent for them.
Yeah, I guess we can officially give you a snipe from me on that one. That was the next best receiver I had on the board, and completely agree with you. He hasn't had that huge breakout game, but he's right there as a 1B receiver by all means. Golden really isn't doing a lot more than him, and on any given week, he's going to be the wide receiver one in Houston. So, yeah, Sam Brown would have been my next pick. So, nice job. And Willie, it brings us back to you. Will a quarterback go off the board so we can get into a quarterback battle here?
No, I was hoping I wasn't going to get sniped, so I'm going to go ahead and take this guy.
Okay.
We're going to go Jack Westover
Oh, okay. Yeah.
from Washington.
Yeah.
They are, he's in the number one passing offense. So I know there's a lot of balls to be had, but they're playing Cal this week, 97th against either tight ends or the position. Um, he's not going to score 3 touchdowns a game like he did last week, but he definitely could be an end zone guy. And
Right.
we're here to give you the guys who should be on lineups. So so I'm going to go like I said, 9% owned, and we'll
Yep.
go Jack Westover.
Yeah, and he came across as a guy I was interested in the preseason in some best balls. I forget the other tight end there. That it just wasn't clear which tight end was going to be the guy in Washington, but it definitely looks like Westover's turning out to be, the tight end one, and that's a good team to be tight end one on. Like you said, they've got a lot of targets. You can't just put your focus on anybody on that team, and he might be a little spotty in terms of his production, but 3 touchdowns. Clearly, he's a guy they're going to be looking for.
Yeah, he is Culpus who you're talking about, and he has Westover has double the targets. So he has 10,
Right.
Culp has 5. So obviously he is, to me, he's the leading tight end now, and so we
Yeah,
don't have
and
to
I
question
think I
that
made the
anymore.
mistake and went the other direction, guessing in preseason maybe it'd go Colt, but yeah, it definitely seems clear that Westover's the guy. Well, I think I'll be the next to bite on quarterback. I'm going to go with the guy. Frankly, I didn't know a whole lot about until this season started because we hadn't seen much of him. The quarterback at Boston College, Tom Castellanos. He's averaging 27 points a game. It's come in a very consistent manner. He's had 26 points, 23 points, and then 32 points this week. He's only owned in 6% of leagues, so even in the deepest of leagues, he should still be out there for a lot of you guys. And he's playing Louisville, so my hope is they get into a little bit of a shootout, as much of a shootout as Boston College can get into. But what I saw from looking at this guy's numbers, since again, didn't know a whole lot about him, frankly, but I love the consistency in terms of the points that he's putting up per game, and I like the matchup versus Louisville. So I'm going to go Thomas Castellanos from Boston College at quarterback.
Oh man, I don't really want to take a quarterback here.
Okay.
I think 3 that I'd be happy with.
And there's only one other person that needs one.
That's true.
But you get 2 picks also. So
I know. Okay, I'm gonna go running back here.
okay.
For the first pick, I'm gonna go Kalen Black from James Madison. He's rushing 8% of leagues.
Yeah.
I like this matchup a lot against Utah State. They have been crushed. Their defense just not very good.
Mm-hmm.
They let 28 points to Idaho State, which Idaho State is a bad FCS team.
Mm-hmm.
They let Air Force score 39. They're not very good. Their front seven isn't very good. Black's got 4 receptions in back-to-back games. He's using both phases of the game. 4 targets, I should say. He's a good receiver, really efficient on the ground. I think that he's the best. He played pretty well against the Troy team. That's honestly very good defensively.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then when we saw him against a bad team in Bucknell week 1, 12 for 125 on the ground, hasn't had that rushing touchdown, but I think he gets it this week. So give me Kalen Black
Nice.
for the first pick.
That's a
Yeah,
good
that's
pick.
another situation where as the weeks go on, we get a little more clarity about who's going to be the leader in a position group. And JMU was a big mess at running back in the preseason. I don't think many people touched that backfield because you just didn't know. But yeah, he seems to definitely be emerging as the clear leader in the backfield there.
I'm going to take a little bit of a risky pick here. I think
Okay.
this could easily backfire on me and get me like 0 points. But I'm going to go Malik Washington, the receiver at Virginia. They get NC State, which is a little bit concerning this year or this week. But overall, I have not been impressed with this NC State defense, and so that gives me a little bit more comfort. But when Anthony Calandria is in, Malik Washington is his guy, straight up.
Mhm.
He targets him, treats him as a wide receiver one,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm essentially making the bet that he gets 10 plus targets in this game and gets me that value that way. So I am hoping that they stick with Flandria, who I thought, he threw those 3 interceptions, but I still thought he had a pretty good game for a guy who's in his second start ever.
Right.
And I think he's the future there. So I'd really like to see Malik Washington have another strong week, and he had a good one last week too. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. All right.
I like it. I like it.
And then, okay, you guys all have your receivers, so I can save that position for last to close me out, which means I'll be looking at tight ends. I don't mind talking you guys through it. I'm trying to choose in my head here between Jay McAfee and Mason Tharp from Texas Tech. They're both averaging, right about 10 points a game. Tharp's targets are going up. But I think Jay McAfee is a little more consistent and reliable. So I'm going to go with Jay McAfee from Georgia Southern, who was one of our guys last week, but people continue to ignore him. And that's also who Willie had last week as the top performing waiver tight end last week. So look, there's nothing in the rules that says we can't have guys on rosters in back-to-back weeks until they get to that 30% level. So we're going to keep taking Jay McAfee until he gets over the 30% mark. And he's got Ball State this week, so I think he's going to be on a mission to prove he's the best tight end in that game over the duo from Ball State.
When we see back-to-back guys, obviously we're saying, they need to be rostered a little more. So
Right.
yeah, nothing wrong with that. We're going to go with our second running back, Imani Bailey from TCU, 24% rostered. He's a double-digit carry guy. He finally got into the end zone against Houston. 126 yards, 67 the week before, and then 164 week one. They have SMU, 54th against the run.
Okay, let me get the spelling right.
I'm going to go ahead and fill my tight end spot. Okay. It really doesn't matter which order I do this in, but I'm going to take Michael Harrison, the Colorado tight end who kind of broke out last night. He's a guy with wide receiver and tight end eligibility, rostered in just 1% of leagues. But his usage after Travis Hunter went down, I thought was very interesting. He ran 37 routes last night compared to 16 against Nebraska. Was put out into the slot 76.7% of his snaps. So definitely seems like more of a receiving option than a blocking option at tight end. So excited to see what he can do with Hunter out for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, he really emerged, and we've now taken the top two performing tight ends overall yesterday. Holker was the top tight end, and Harrison, like the late night game, produced the top two tight ends for the week. They both had over 28 points in the game last night as a team because they see what he's
I will take Emmanuel Mitchell, the Air Force fullback. He had 28 attempts last week versus Utah State, which is the most any non-quarterback has gotten in a single game for Air Force by a large margin. So it seems like he could be taking over that Brad Roberts super back role is what they call it. And I'm excited if one guy actually does push themselves above the others in this Air Force offense. Nobody really has yet except for the quarterback. So kind of a shot in the dark, hoping that he sees 28 attempts again. He turned those into 106 yards and 3 touchdowns. Plays San Jose State this week on a Friday, so they'll score points on offense, keep Air Force having to play from behind, and they're not very good against the run, and they'll play against an option team on a short week. So I think Air Force can have a pretty good rushing week.
Yeah, you can't ignore the 28 carries. That's what stood out for sure. So, Willie B, now you will have to take your quarterback.
Now, I like that you picked the 0% owned. I love that. And a 1. So,
right. Yep.
We're going to go our quarterback here. I'm actually surprised at their record. They have Delaware State this week, so they have a chance to go 3-1. We're going to go Brett Gabbert from Miami of Ohio. He's averaging, 21 points a game, 6% rostered. Should definitely throw for 250 yards. He has 7 touchdowns his last 2 games. So let's hopefully he can not throw 3 interceptions. He's also had 3 interceptions total in the last 2 games. But I hope that we can get 30 points out of him this week, Ohio.
Yeah, so he's now throwing to also the #1 receiver in the country with Larvidane, the newly emerged receiver who was on the waiver wire last week for me, but is well over 30% in 1 week. He jumped up to 50%. So apparently that kid that moved up from the FCS is making Gabbert look better than he ever has. So it's interesting what happens when you put really good talent around a quarterback who's kind of just hovered around mediocrity for a long time. Now Gabbert's starting to shine a little bit more. So I guess I'll close it out here on my roster. I think I'm going to go with a guy that I think is going to continue to see increased production, which is Ledietrich Griffin from Mississippi State. They're playing South Carolina, but it's a guy I really liked a lot in preseason. Didn't jump on him as much as I wanted to, because I wanted to take a little bit of wait and see approach with the Mississippi State offense and exactly what they were going to do and who the #1 target was going to be. And he's getting 6 or 7 targets a game, but he's another guy like Jaden Lucas that all you heard about in the preseason from coaches was how electric he is, how they're going to do everything they can to get him the ball in a lot of different ways, which they did this week. He ended up scoring a touchdown on an end around. So, the coaches are doing what they said they're going to do with the kid. His first week, he only had 7 points, but he backed that up with a 25-point game and then a 14-point game this week. And again, playing against South Carolina, that doesn't necessarily scare me. It's going to be a tough game, but the tough games are where your talent has to rise, and it's a big chance for him to prove himself as the electric player that the Mississippi State coaches said he would be. So I will close it out with Ledietrich Griffin. Yeah.
So all of the quarterbacks except, I have about 4 quarterbacks that I was deciding between.
Uh-huh.
And
they're all 4 there?
4 of them are there. And I mean, I had the guys that y'all picked as well. So I had a deep roster of quarterbacks. I actually liked it this week, and so I was fine waiting until the end.
Just to make it interesting, give us the 4 you have, and then we'll guess which one you're going to take, each of us, and then you make your pick.
Keon Jenkins at FIU,
Okay.
been really productive through the air, and he's delivering on the
Yep.
I have a little bit of worry since Liberty's a really good pass defense thus
Yep.
far. Diego Pavia,
Okay.
he is averaging 24.8 points per game. They got Hawaii this week. I think the Hawaii front 7 is better than they've shown. They played well against Vanderbilt week 1, and then I think they got some push against Stanford, and Oregon is just a game you throw out.
Mm-hmm.
Nicholas Vitiato, I think is how it's pronounced. At Middle Tennessee, he's somewhat of a rushing threat, over 30 attempts per game. Colorado State's passing defense is quite terrible, 122nd EPA per play, 129th success rate, but it's really tough to trust Middle Tennessee State. And the guy that I think I'm going to go with. You all want to guess.
Don't say that. Don't say that one then. Out of those 3, you said you're probably going to go with the next one.
I think I would take Pavia. I don't like the matchups for the other 2 very much.
I just love the yards he's putting up. He's been within 10 or 15 of 300 in all 3 of his games. Okay. Willie, Any of the other three stand out, or you just want to let Chris get on with his final pick?
No, I'd have to agree. Pavia only do the matchup.
Okay. All right. So, Chris, you teased us that the one you didn't mention is the one you're probably going to take, which is
Dion Chris, the quarterback at Louisiana Lafayette.
interesting. Okay.
Um, he is a legit track star, was in high
Mm-hmm.
school. 80-yard touchdown run against UAB's defense. I don't think Ben Woolridge is playing this week. He was on the sideline in crutches. They said he could. Coach Michael Desmarais said he couldn't put any weight on his foot. They get Buffalo this week,
Mm-hmm.
which Caden Salter posted that almost 50 burger. He had 6 total touchdowns, 66 on the ground, 344 through the air. I think that Chris and Salter not all that different in players. I mean, Zion Chris had 6 carries for 110 plus yards
Yeah.
last night.
Wow.
This is a guy who I think is a crazy athlete. I think he's the best quarterback on this team, and I'm glad we're finally getting to see him because I think he's a player. So yeah, he's 1% owned. I'm picking him up in places. I have him rostered, stashed in some deep 24 team leagues, but Zion Chris, I think that he could exploit Buffalo the same way that Caden Salford did last week.
I love that pick. Because we do hours and hours of research. We're watching hours and hours of games, and none of us can keep up with everybody. And I love the fact that I didn't even know who this kid was, and you just exposed me to him. So thanks, Chris, because the stats you just gave, I'm kind of blown away that, I don't know who he is, and so now I'm going to dig a little deeper. So yeah, appreciate that. That's good.
Well, I was hoping that that wouldn't be the guy because I kind of want him to stay a little bit under the radar. I did watch that game, and I mean the kid was fast and smooth. So that running ability, I was just like, who is this kid? Number two. I was like, who's number two? So yeah, I like it. I like it.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
I took some chances, and I think that's the way you got to
let's take
do
it
it
back at
to
you,
to
Kyle.
win
Just
these.
in general,
I
what do you
think there's
think
a
about your
possibility a
team?
couple guys
And
on my team
we'll all
are
kind of run
closer
through
to
kind
0
of,
than they are to 20, but hopefully
just
they
some
can get
quick thoughts
30,
on
and
how you
I'll
think
be
he did
happy.
overall. There you go. Sometimes it just takes that one guy that gets 40, and then you're smooth sailing from there. Willie, what about you? How do you feel? You got over 90 last week. Your average for the season is 84.3. Will you get enough this week to get your average up to 90 for the season?
Yeah, I feel like that this is definitely a 90 to 95 range. I wish I had taken a different tight end.
Okay.
Thomas Fedone out of Nebraska. He was the number one rated tight end coming out of high school in 21. I think
Mm-hmm.
I had him in our home league.
Yeah.
Couple ACL surgeries in 21 and 22, but he's coming on, scored touchdowns the last two games. I wish I'd have, kind of waited a little bit and just taken him instead, but we'll go Westover.
Hey, that's the fun of the pressure of the live draft. We didn't get to sit up. Last year, we sat around all day Sunday. We had 2 hours in between picks. You got to do your deep homework. This year, we got a little distracted watching the Colorado game. We didn't get to do as much homework last night, so we all have a little buyer's regret here and there. Chris, in general, you talked us through the quarterbacks. So, what about the rest of your team? How you feeling?
I think that I could post like 50 or I could post 100. I think this team is
Hit or miss?
is built on variance.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of variance, but I think if these players hit their upper percentile outcome,
Yep.
that I feel really, really good about where we're sitting. And I think I basically just drafted a bunch of dudes who are fast and hoping they can out athlete a team. So
Right. Yeah.
let's hope it
Yeah.
works.
So the guys you picked, if you're in a league with bonuses for long touchdowns, they should take your guys.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I think Lucas, Chris, Daniels, like all those guys can score from deep. Honestly,
Yeah,
consistently.
that's good.
So yeah, I think that's a really good point.
All right. Well, as far as my team, I'm feeling really good. I wasn't particularly excited about the quarterbacks that are available now that are under 30%, but I like the one that I got. Um, I would say, Haynes King was an interesting choice, but I don't know if anybody else had him. He's playing Wake Forest, which Fantrax shows is 31st against quarterbacks. I didn't look to see actually how they are against the pass in general, but Haynes King is a guy that's averaging 29 points a game, so he's one that I would have considered. Um, Another one with a tough matchup, who I had last week, and I think is going to keep getting better and better, is A.J. Swan, but he's also playing Kentucky. So, again, the difference here in the waivers that we're offering up is opportunities are guys that aren't necessarily facing as tough of competition. So, King and Swan, maybe wait another week. They might still be available next week. Another person in that situation that I talked to Willie about before we got online, I was curious to see if anybody was going to take Kyle Monangai from Rutgers. I think we probably all stayed away from him, even though he's the number 10 running back in the country right now, because he's playing Michigan. Um, I was real close because my son went there. I'm here sitting in New Jersey as we speak. I'm rooting for the Scarlet Knights. And he's going to get his 20 to 25 carries. So I was thinking, okay, even if it's Michigan, the guy's going to get his volume, but I like the other options better. Monangai is a guy that maybe if you're looking for down the road, you go ahead and still pick him up, but probably not the best play for this week. And the last guy I'll mention that I considered is Dejon Edwards from Georgia, who's back. He's playing UAB. I'm actually surprised nobody grabbed him. He had 20 for 118 and a touchdown last night against South Carolina. So, Edwards from Georgia seems to be back.
When I said I had a guy who could hit a single or a guy could hit a home run, Edwards was the single, and Michelle was home run. I also had Haynes King on my list, but that Wake Forest defense did scare me. They gave up just 19 points to A.J. Swan and held Grant Wilson from ODU to just 5 points. So,
Willie, some final thoughts?
Yeah, the last quarterback that I only had 5. King was one, and I thought Chris might take this guy, Joey Aguilar from App State.
Yeah,
I know
Nate, I had him on mine also.
Yeah, Nate Noel stole some shine, but he has 9 touchdowns on the season.
Yeah,
he's averaging 25 points a game, only 4% rostered.
Yeah, and he's playing Eastern Carolina, who's not very stout on defense. So. Yeah, that's actually
I show Wyoming actually.
I'm sorry, Wyoming. Who did I say? Oh, he played ECU this week. Yeah, and they got Wyoming. Yeah, Wyoming this week coming up. Got crossed up with my notes. Okay, Chris, Kyle, this was great. You guys added a ton of insight.
Yeah, you can find me
Kyle,
on EK Films YouTube channel, The Devi Dose.
Unless we heard it from you this morning. That's pretty impressive.
Twice a week
stuff.
Usually. I think we're going to record later today, so we'll be
Kyle,
live over there this afternoon.
And Chris, Campus to Canton is still rolling, getting bigger and stronger every day. What else do you have going on, or what are you doing specifically over there throughout the week on a regular basis, and where else?
Yeah, you can find everything really. I'm doing it, Campus to Canton. Mixture of things involved in Devi stuff like Devi debate, and then a lot of my focus on Saturdays is betting focus. So. I'm in the Discord tilting off pretty much all day. But yeah, and then, we are our Saturday show on Better Network that's streamed on our YouTube page as well, which we have a ton of fun just previewing the weekend. It's always a good time. It's actually my favorite show to do from 10 to 12.
Right.
Before,
you guys have your own.
Gotcha.
Well, as promised, and as we do every Sunday, we will let you now get to your pregame NFL show. We do not want to interrupt anybody's NFL Sundays, which is why we record this in the mornings. And it is like getting up for school sometimes, but it's okay. I like what the class is all about. So with that, good luck, everybody. Week 4, the games and the matchups are only going to get better from here as we get ready to get into some serious conference play. This was awesome. Everybody came prepared. These were some of the best notes I think we've had in the 4 weeks. So expecting some high scores. I'm guaranteeing 95 points from my squad. Guaranteeing 95 points this week. Okay, you heard it here. All right, we're out. Bye.
Thanks, guys.